Hey everyone, welcome to the John Acuff Back to Cool webinar. If you're watching this on replay, we want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here. If you're watching this live, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for showing up. We have an action-packed webinar tonight, and make sure you stick around to the end because we have a really cool thing that we've been working on that John is super excited to tell you about. So again, this is the Back to Cool webinar, and here's John.
And I want to start with saying I wish there was a better word for webinar. I feel like it's like you can't even verb it. Like we're gonna webinar tonight. It's just a really weird word. So one, thank you for joining me. I want to say right out of the gate, you guys and girls are already like a percent of a percent of a percent. If you ever do a webinar, here's how it goes. You get a lot of people that sign up, and then less people show up, and then less people stay. So I want to say hi to like the 7%. You guys and girls are magical, and I'm really excited about that. So tonight I want to talk about how do you use the momentum of the back to school season. I've talked about this a few times. There's 2 New Years in the calendar. Like when I worked for people like the Home Depot and Bose, they looked at the year and would say, okay, January is a new year and September is a new year. And the reason is you've got all this momentum of back to school pushing you. As an adult, it kind of sucks because you go, I don't get to go back to school. I don't get a fresh like Trapper Keeper. I don't get new sneakers. Like there's no new gym uniform. Like maybe you don't want a new gym uniform. Like gym uniforms are bogus, but you don't get to start over. And I thought, what if this year you and I were really deliberate about starting over, starting something fresh in September? Because here's the thing, fear likes to tell you that the year is already over, that you don't have a lot of time left. But the reality is, you have 25% of your year left. You have so much time. If you start in September, you've actually got September, October, November, December. You've got 33% of your year left. So tonight I want to talk a little about how do you make the most of this season. And I'm really passionate about goals because a few years ago, I was sitting in my car. And I don't think I was crying. Like I've talked about this before. It's more dramatic if I was. So if you need that to add to the story, like maybe I was really like my back was against the wall and it was like a Rocky scene. But I just remember sitting in the dark and I just spent an hour in Atlanta traffic. And I was really frustrated because I was going to go into a job and it was a fine job. Like I wasn't like coal mining. It was a fine job, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I felt really stuck and I didn't know what to do with that. I had a bunch of someday dreams. Maybe you've had some of those where you go, someday I'm gonna write a book. Someday I'm gonna fall in love, or someday I'm gonna lose weight, or someday I'm gonna start my own business, or someday I'm gonna take this little thing I'm good at and turn it into a bigger part of my life. And I felt like I'd been saying that for years and nothing had happened. And it was frustrating. I always describe that feeling as it felt like I was wearing roller skates on an ice skating rink, like tons of motion, tons of momentum, but I didn't go anywhere. I didn't actually move. And this is the part of the webinar where I say, and I learned one secret and here it is. And I try to say like, and you get Ginsu knives if you buy it, but that's not true. That's not how it happened. It wasn't this one eureka moment. It wasn't that I met this old man who came in out of the fog and told me this clue to life. It wasn't like that at all. If anything, it was small little bits of hustle, small little things where I'd say, okay, I can't write a book this weekend, but I can get up and write a blog. I can't pay my house off this month, but I can work on paying off my car. I can't, go away for a week to a writer's cabin. Like that's always the myth, like that people have writer's cabin. I wrote my first book in a Burger King. I almost said Burger King bathroom because I was quoting the Humpty Dance by Digital Underground, but that's because I'm street. But I couldn't do these big things, but I could do these little things. So I got really passionate about that. So tonight I want to talk about how do you really work on your goals in a deliberate way. And I've actually got some slides. And the reason I'm passionate about goals, I'm going to go ahead and share those, which is always a bit of a process. But the reason I'm passionate about my goals and the goals you do is really simple. I'm going to go ahead and show that. My big belief is that you were meant to do more than float. You and I were meant to do more than float. We're not supposed to just float through life. And so how do we be smart about our goals? How do we be deliberate about our goals? Even if it's August and you're just on the tail end of summer and you're thinking, okay, what do I want to do next? How do you be deliberate about that? I think there's a few things you need to do. Number one, pick the right goals. pick the right goals. I mean, this is a really, really simple question to ask yourself. What is your goal? What is your goal? In an important way, could it be smaller? We're often told to dream big. We're told to have these massive goals. You got to dream big, go for it. But that can be really intimidating. So I'm a big believer in dreaming big and goal small. Big dream, small goal. So what's your goal? What are you going to work on? And the challenge about this phase of any kind of goal setting endeavor is you're going to have too many to work on right out of the gate, and you're going to want it to be perfect. That's what a lot of people I talk to struggle with. They go, okay, I have a goal, but it's not the right one. I think there's this part of us that thinks if you pick the right goal, it'll be easier. It'll kind of take care of itself. But the reality is you're not going to have a perfect goal. I'm not going to have a perfect goal. And here's what I know about perfection. Stop trying to pick a perfect goal. Just pick one and perfect it as you go. I mean, the reality is I started writing online about subjects very different than the subjects I write about now. I mean, 8 years ago when I had my first real blog, it was satire. And I was really curious about that. And then I got curious about jobs. And then I got curious about goals because I think they make the world go round. And so you're going to tweak what you do. Over time, your goal is going to change. It doesn't have to be perfect right out of the gate. I think about that with my little sister, and especially college students. I talk to a lot of college students, and they feel this tremendous pressure to pick the right major, to pick the perfect major. And my little sister felt that. I remember talking to her. She's 15 years younger than me. She was an amazing surprise in our family, and she was worried about her major. And I remember saying, Molly, I couldn't have picked a major doing what I do right now. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, a lot of my job are things like webinars and social media and tweeting and Facebook. I couldn't have studied that in college because it didn't exist. Like it physically didn't exist. The thing you may end up doing, your goal, might not even exist yet. So don't try to make it perfect. The next question you need to ask is, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? And there's been a lot of brilliant people that have written about this subject. Probably the best known is Simon Sinek with the book Start With Why. He has a whole book that talks about how do you figure out what your why is. But again, don't get stuck here. I think it's really challenging for you to think that you need a perfect why. But what you have to remember is it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be personal. It has to be based on your life. And probably one of the best I ever heard, was a client I went and spoke for. Now, this client had a home-based business. And I talked to her about it. I said, how'd you get involved in this home-based business? And the business she did was she was a P90X coach. Like she was in crazy shape. Like she was like super, super fit. I said, how'd you get involved in this? And she said, well, my husband was a Green Beret and he was in Afghanistan and a bunch of his friends in his unit got killed. And I remember one night saying, I'm going to figure out how to do something that earns enough money that if we want him to end that job, if he wants to do that, like she wasn't trying to force him, but if he wants to come home from that and leave early, he can. And she made the decision to do that. And you talk about a why that'll burn like brighter than the sun. I mean, that's amazing. But what happens is when you ask why, you start to dig through some of the fake answers. Remember, there was a girl that I talked with on Facebook the other day, and she said she had to realize that her real goal to diet wasn't about a number. Like we get obsessed with the number on the scale or the number on our pant size, but her real goal was to not be so unhealthy that she had to take the same medicine that her mom did because her mom had made bad health choices. She looked down the road and said, you know, I don't want to end up there, so I need to make different choices. So it wasn't about the number. You see, the number didn't motivate her because the number wasn't the real reason. The real reason was she saw her mom and said, that's not going to be my future. And see, here's what's really, really fun. The why opens up lots of methods. Sometimes we get stuck on the method. I meet people and they go, I got to get in shape, so I got to run. And I'll go, well, do you like running? And they'll go, it doesn't matter. I got to get in shape, so I got to run. They have one method. But when you understand the why, it exposes you to all these methods. Here's what I mean. Maybe right now you're thinking, okay, I got to write a book. I got to write a book. And if we had coffee and sat down and I said, well, what is it about that makes you want to write a book? And you said, well, I love to share myself creatively. Like I love to express my creativity. And maybe we could find a bunch of ways for you to do that. Maybe speaking is a way to do that. Maybe painting is a way to do that. Maybe music is a way to do that. Once you have your why, the methods multiply. There's a million ways to get in shape. There's a million ways to stay healthy. And once you have a sense of your why, you'll have a bigger freedom to kind of figure out what your goal really is. So that's the second question. Why am I doing it? Which brings us to the third question. And we often don't talk about this one enough. We talk about the why a lot. It's a popular one to talk about, but this one I feel like is less discussed. Here's the first one. Which parts will you measure? Which parts will you measure? And right away we start to think, well, maybe there's not something easy for me to measure. I mean, it's simple if you go, I'm going to pay off debt. My goal is to pay off debt. So I'm going to track money. Or my goal is to eat better. So I'm going to track calories and pounds lost and times I went to the gym. And maybe my goal is to write a book. So I'm going to count words. But maybe your goal is fuzzier than that. You can't think of an easy part to measure. Well, a simple thing to do is to measure the hours invested in your goal. So say you've got a fuzzy goal. And your goal is to be in better community with people, which is so blurry, I know. But you could measure the amount of times you went out with friends, or you could measure the amount of texts you sent to friends trying to connect with them. You can always measure things. And here's what you learn about measurement. Progress you don't measure doesn't exist. Progress you don't measure doesn't exist. And here's the problem. The problem is that pain and failure is neon and progress is invisible. We have a really easy time remembering all the times we messed up, don't we? Can't you remember the critics, like the one critic against the 100 people that liked what you said? I heard Hugh Grant say that in an interview today. He said, you know, I never read the good reviews. I only read the bad ones. He goes right there because pain, failure, mistakes, those are really, really, really easy for us to mess up on and remember. But the progress is hard, so we have to be deliberate about measuring the progress. So that's the third question. You've got, what is your goal? Why are you doing it? Which parts are you going to measure? Which brings us to the fourth goal. And the fourth one is really simple. All of these are simple. They're all very common sense. I'm a huge fan, obviously, of common sense. I love when people say, well, that's just common sense. Whenever somebody reads like a health book or a book of like finance and they go, it's just common sense, I always want to go, so you're already in like amazing shape? You're already super healthy, or you're already a multimillionaire? Because if you're not, it's not common sense. It's the most amazing thing you've ever heard in your life. So the next question is really simple. When will you hustle on it? When are you going to hustle on it? That's it. And I always think about this one in relationship to the people we spend time with. Have you ever had this happen in a conversation where somebody says, okay, we should get together for coffee? Like you bump into somebody at Home Depot or the grocery store and they go, it's been so long, we should get together for coffee. If they don't then pull out their phone and open their calendar, that was a fake statement. They don't really want to get together with coffee for you, because what they're saying is, oh, I would love to see you. If only I had a device that had my entire calendar and life on it, then I could make a coffee date, but I don't. So they're just using punctuation, like conversational punctuation. I'd love to catch up. Sometimes we do that to our goals. We go, I'm going to write that book. I'm going to declutter my house. I'm going to, clean out a garage. I'm going to be more deliberate about I'm going to read more. You know what? I'm going to cut out soda. I'm getting rid of all soda. And you go, well, like, when are you going to throw away the soda you have right now? And they go, eventually I'm going to really do that. And if you won't pull out your phone and actually do it, it'll never actually happen. That's how you know a goal is real or not, is if you'll introduce that goal to your calendar. If you won't, it's a fake goal. And it's a goal that you're just going to carry around and think about, but not actually do. And so you have to answer the question, when will you hustle on it? Because the problem is later goals turn into never goals. That's what happens to our goals. Our later goals turn into never goals. And there's a second part of this question. Here's the second part. It's kind of a 1-2 punch. You have to know where you will hustle on it. Where are you going to hustle on it? As you think about your life, where are you actually going to hustle on? And here's why I ask this. I ask this because statistically, it changes your ability to get stuff done, which is crazy. Like right now, I don't know if you ever feel this way. We live under the idea of like anything you want to say, you can just say on the internet. There's no like truth filter. There's no fact filter. There's no statistic. Like anyone can just go, this thing worked for me one time. Here's a course. And you go, well, but is that true? Like, did it just happen to you because of a unique situation? And so I love when I find things that are just true because they're scientifically true. And the where question, where are you going to hustle on the things you care about, is scientifically true. There was a study done at a university in Germany by a researcher named Peter Golitzer. And Peter brought 2 groups of college students in at the holidays. So it's December. Brings 2 college groups in. He says, hey, to the first group, I want you to do an essay. During the holiday, do an essay, okay? And they go, okay, we'll totally do that essay. He says to the other group, okay, I want you to do an essay over the break, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down when you're going to do it and where you'll do it. So right now, in this moment, I want you to say, you know what? I'm going to do this essay on January 4th, and I'm going to do it at my parents' house at the table in the kitchen. They wrote that down, and they committed to that. So then they came back at the end of the break. Now, that's a really simple activity. That's a really, really easy activity, isn't it? I mean, it's not that complicated. He didn't teach them 15 steps. All he had them do is answer those 2 questions we just talked about. When are you going to do it? And where will you do it? Those aren't hard questions to answer. If I asked you those questions tonight, you'd have an answer for me. It wouldn't be hard for you to figure that out. If you said, okay, I'm going to work on my business, and I said, well, when? You would have to say, well, next Thursday. Like, I'll get up early for an hour before work, and I'll work on my business. If I said where, you'd have to say, okay, it's going to be in my kitchen. But then you might remember, oh, my kids get up early, so maybe you have to go to a coffee shop. And all of a sudden, you start to add some layers of detail and reality to what was just a myth. Like, it wasn't a goal, it was a myth. Until you answer some of these questions, your goals are just myths. And so he had these college students do this. And after the break, the students that had not written down when and where, 32% of them did the essay. So of the group, 32% came in and said, hey, here's the essay. The students who had taken, again, what is that, a minute, and written down when and where, 71% of them had completed the essay. 71%, that doubled their chance of success. So when I tell you, you gotta know when, you gotta know where, it's not because it's fun to say that, it's because it works. And I'm always on the hunt for things that work and that are simple. Like, life is complicated and stressful enough already. You don't need something else that's complicated and stressful. So when and where? If I asked you about your goals for the fall, if I asked you about your goals for September, where are you going to work on them? And where will you hustle on it? Because what you learn is that goal setting is like real estate. It's all about location, location, location. The last question that we have to ask ourselves is this one. How will you hustle on it? How will you hustle on it? And I have this exercise that I'm working on for my new book called A Conversation with the How Kid, the HOW kid. Because kids ask a million questions, don't they? They say the funniest things. I remember my daughter and I, McCrae, we were driving to a party. We were late. I had picked her up from art. And she said, Dad, by the time we get there, all the good layers of the 7-layer burrito will be gone. And she's right if you think about it. Like, there is a class system to this. There's no fairness or equality. Like, the guacamole is the king layer. Nobody cares about the bean layer. That is a foundational layer used to support the other delicious layers. But kids say funny things. But if you talk to a kid, they ask what I call winnowing questions. They try to winnow you down. If you say an answer, they ask a follow-up and a follow-up and a follow-up. So imagine you had a conversation with the how kid, and you said, I'm going to run a 5K this year. They'd say, well, how? And if you said, with my heart, with my why, with the fire I've got inside, with the eye of the tiger, they wouldn't accept that. They'd say, how? And you'd have to say, well, I'm going to sign up for the Disney Star Wars 5K. And they'd say, how? And you'd say, on their website. Then I'm going to use a training plan. And they'd say, how? And you'd say, I found one online from a guy named Jeff Galloway that people seem to really love. Next, I'm going to buy new shoes. And they'd say, how? And you'd say, I'm going to Fleet Feet. I'll get measured and fitted like a real runner, then I'll start running. And they'd say, how? You say, well, I'm really busy, so I'll need to schedule my running time or it won't happen. And they'd say, how? And again and again and again until you eventually got the answer that they were looking for. And you winnowed it down. That's what we have to do with our goals and our actions is we start with these huge goals and we winnow them down to a Wednesday or a Thursday morning. I'm in the process of doing that right now. This is gonna be messy, but can you see that board over there? You see the pink and the orange? That's orange. That's my new book. And I'm working on it bit by bit by bit by bit. That's a light that's designed to make me look pretty. Look at that. Look at that. It's called a halo, much like Beyonce. Little behind the scenes. But you have to take these big goals and then you have to winnow them down. And the reason that I get really excited about that is that this has become a passion the last few years. I've been doing this thing called the 30 Days of Hustle, which is this 30-day video course where I help people actually work on their goals. And for the first time ever, we actually have statistical evidence that it works, which is really, really fun. We had a researcher study it, and we can statistically say, hey, when you do this action, this other thing happens. And we wanted more people to be involved with it, so we wanted to do a September one for the first time ever. It's the last one of the year, one more, and we created 3 different levels for people to connect with. So I want to show you those real quick. Oh, there we go. The first one is quick access. And here's what you get. You get the 30 Days of Hustle workbook, the 30 videos day by day by day, a checklist, daily email reminders. It's really kind of the intro package. And right now it's only $37 through Friday, August 19th. We haven't even announced it except in this webinar. But it's for people that go, you know what? I don't want the community aspect. I just want to get in and get out. I've got a goal. I want to work on it. We also have the Premier Access. This is going to be the most popular one. We've already had 3,000 people go through this one. In addition to all the cool stuff you get in the first one, the big thing is you get membership in a private Facebook community. And you get some other stuff, amplify your results video, make it through the middle webinar, but the community is gigantic. Ask anyone who's been through the 30 Days of Hustle, and what they'll tell you is the Facebook group surprised me. It surprised me how valuable it was to have people from around the world cheering me on. That's what I wanted in that car when I was by myself going into a job I didn't want to go into, is I wanted community. I wanted to know I wasn't crazy. Sometimes that's all you want in community is like on a Friday, you need somebody to tell you, hey, no, you're not crazy. That's a great goal. You can do that. And so that's the Premier. And then the final level is the All Access. We created an access level where there's much more interaction with me. And we're doing a few different things that are fun. One is we're doing a All Access Periscope account that I won't announce. It's just going to be secret, where I'm able to do some coaching. I really wanted to figure out, how do I actually connect with people? So I'm going to be coaching people through the Periscope account. It's going to be a small community. There'll be a bonus Facebook community, an All Access Q&A webinar, and then you get the giant poster. The gigantic New Year poster. I use one every day. Like, I use one every day and I absolutely love it. And so if you're curious at all, like, this is the time to do it. The prices are super, super cheap. It's $37 instead of $67. It's $67 instead of $97. It's $127 instead of $197. And the early bird expires next week. And so to get access to that, here's the URL, 30daysofhustle.com, 30daysofhustle.com. And I'll end by telling you something really, really quickly. And I'll just say again, like, this is my poster. I use this calendar every day. But I do the 30 Days of Hustle because I know something about you. I know you're capable of more than you think, and it's going to take more than you think. You know, coming up, there were a lot of people that would tell me that first part. They go, John, you're capable, you're capable. But there were no steps on the other side. And I would get really excited by these books that were like, how to be a better leader, how to sleep more, how to eat better food. I bought all these books like that. And then on the opposite side of it, it just felt like it fell apart. Have you ever been to a conference? Like, you've been to an event and you're jacked, like you're so excited. And then you walk to your car and it's like reality is waiting for you, or fear is waiting for you. And all the things you thought you learned, you didn't learn how to do because they didn't give you real steps. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create something for the me in that car 8 years ago who thought he couldn't do anything, who thought he was forever stuck, who didn't think he had community. So that's what I'm doing. And it's been really fun. We've already had a lot of people who went through the 30 Days of Hustle do the all access level because they go, okay, wait a second. I've already done the class. I want the coaching bit. So it's been fun to see people already start to use the 3 different groups. So again, it's really, really simple. I'll pull up that URL one more time, although it's like the shortest URL ever. So you should be able to memorize it. You probably already have a tattoo of it, but here it is. It's 30daysofhustle.com. And again, this is the lowest price. I don't want you to miss it. Here's what they are. 37 instead of 67, 67 instead of 97, 127 instead of 197. And it's at 30daysofhustle.com. And again, this is the last time I'll do it this year. I just really want to be able to focus on what I've got coming in January. So there's only going to be one in September. There's not going to be like a sneak one where I go, surprise, like there's a bonus October one. There's not going to be like a Halloween 30 Days of Hustle. We're going to do it one more time. And again, we've had 3,500 people do it. It's a money back guarantee, which is like the simplest money back guarantee in the history of mankind. But it's been really fun. We've only had like 0.09% of people want a money back guarantee. So if you have any questions, please let us know. But otherwise, regardless of if you do the 30 Days of Hustle, don't miss September. Like, don't sleep on September. September is going to be fun. September is a slingshot moment. It's this month where you get to pull your goals back and launch them out. So I hope you have a great, great rest of your night. That felt action-packed. We're under 30. Brian, did I forget anything?
No, I don't think you did. In fact, we have that offer. If people have already forgotten the URL, they can click the little offers button on their webinar panel, and there should be a link to get them right there. But yeah, I think that's everything.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I know you got a million things you can do. Again, you're a percent of the percent of the percent. So thanks for being I'm just going to call you like the wicked awesome 7, because you can't say thanks for being the 1%, because that starts whole conversation. There's no good. No, like from a marketing perspective, that's a bonus lesson. Never say that doesn't work. That doesn't go anywhere you want it to go. So have a great rest of your night. And I'll be on Twitter for a little while answering any questions if you have any. So thanks, guys.